Did you know that you can receive sleep training help even if your baby is not a baby any longer? I love being able to share my client success stories because I have worked with over 500 families and I have a 98% success rate. Got a lot of them to share. Today I'm going to be talking about a family who has a little boy who was 5 years old at the time of sleep training, and we were able to get him to successfully fall asleep on his own and eliminate all of his night wakings. Hi, my name is Sarah, and as the lead certified pediatric sleep expert at Yours and Baby's Sleep, I help families with children ages 0 to 8 years old to get their sleep on track. Let's talk about Oscar and his sleep training journey. To protect the anonymity of this family and this child, Oscar is not his real name. This is something that I have made up. But I will be using actual facts from the sleep log from when I was working with the family to show you the progress of sleep training over time. Let's set the groundwork for where Oscar was when he first came to me on that initial discovery call. At 5 years old, he needed a lot of assistance to go to sleep. There was a lot of pushback, a lot of boundaries being broken, a lot of one more XYZ, and it was really hard for him to go to bed within a reasonable amount of time. For the parents, it took about an hour, and then what we were experiencing was multiple night wakings, which the parents reported were nightmares. They were actually really concerned that there was some type of medical implication for his sleep disturbances. However, I had a hunch that what started once as a nightmare was probably being reinforced as behavior because he knew he was going to get attention from his parents using the excuse of the nightmare. I'm going to walk you through the program, exactly what we did to troubleshoot, and the ups and downs of the sleep training method. A large part of sleep training when we get to the older years, so preschool and up, is not really about the skill of independent sleep at bedtime, but about establishing trust, confidence, and empowering your child in their abilities to fall asleep. At this age, we have a lot of issues such as separation anxiety or just being away from mom and dad during the day because now we've started preschool or kindergarten. And we want to spend quality time with our parents, but we have a very limited amount of time to doing so. So part of the program was to incorporate more quality one-on-one time before the bedtime routine even began. We can do this for a very short period of time. It doesn't have to be hours. 15 minutes goes a long way. So we incorporated after school, sitting down for 15 minutes, doing an activity that Oscar preferred. One-on-one attention, no other attention given to any other child or phones or work or anything. It was just the focus on Oscar. And that was able to fill up his cup so that when we went into the bedtime routine, we weren't seeking out attention for other things because we've already filled up that cup at the beginning. Another part of the anxiety that Oscar had was not being able to leave his room. So this child, funny enough, was really a rule follower. So he wanted so desperately to follow the rules of staying in his bed, but he was so scared that he had to follow the rules and wouldn't be able to go seek out help if he needed it. And this just caused a big ball of anxiety. So I created a ticket out the door system, meaning he was allowed to have 2 tickets by his bedside that he could use at any time after lights out to go access mom and dad. But once the tickets were gone, that was it. He was required to stay in his bed for the rest of the night. A lot of the times these tickets are just comfort. The majority of the time Oscar would use one literally within seconds of his dad leaving the room. He would turn out the lights and then 30 seconds later end up in the living room just to do a check and almost to say like, are you really gonna be here? Are you really gonna let me come out with no repercussions? I'm not gonna get yelled at. And then he would leave that second ticket on his nightstand just for comfort and wouldn't ever have to use it again. The final step in the beginning of the bedtime routine process, or beginning of the night, I should say, was making sure that mom and dad were not in the room when he fell asleep. So part of the anxiety that seemed like it was helping, but was actually hindering, was rooted in the parents being in the room when he fell asleep. And then when he'd wake up, naturally we all wake up several times a night, him searching the room and his parents not being there. Then that would create anxiety. It's almost the same thing, you know, that they say nowadays, like, don't sneak out on your kids. If you're leaving the house, tell them you're leaving the house. When you're leaving daycare, don't try and sneak away. Same concept. If you are going to be leaving the room, you want them to know you're leaving the room and not doing it when they're passed out. That can be alarming when they wake up. So at the front end of the night, we made sure that the parents were completely out of the room. He was wide awake and putting himself to sleep from an awake state without them sitting there. Therefore, in the middle of the night when he was looking for his parents, we could go in and check using the time checks method, which is the method we chose, but with the expectation that nobody was going to sit and accompany him while he was falling back to sleep. Let's talk about some real stats from their sleep log from night 1. On night 1, Oscar was put in bed at 6:45 and took 1 hour to fall asleep. It was reported that it was not so bad for night 1. He did like the check-ins. It made him feel confident in the process, and it seemed to have a calming effect on his anxiety regarding his possible nightmares. In the middle of the night, he did wake up for 23 minutes from 3:20 to 3:53, but he really did go back to sleep pretty quickly after 1 or 2 checks mom reported. In the middle of sleep training on night 7, we can see from the log that he was put in bed at 6:45 and he fell asleep at 7:15. And the feedback from the parents were that the nighttime or the bedtimes were getting much shorter. There was much less protest and he felt really confident. He was still using 1 ticket every time that his parents would leave the room. He saved his second ticket just for safekeeping for the middle of the night, but we were starting to see 0 wake-ups from this point on. Around night 10, we did have a random wake-up, which I want to talk about because sleep training doesn't always look linear and kids don't always catch on right away. So mom wasn't home at bedtime. She usually did bedtime. She was not home. She had to work late. And as a result, Oscar had woken up at 11:45, which is a natural time to wake. It's when we transition out of our deep sleep into our light sleep, and left the room to see where mom was. He appropriately used his ticket, got access to mom, said goodnight, I love you, and went right back to bed. So even though we did see a night waking further along into the process, we saw that he was able to consistently show this new positive behavior where there weren't multiple night wakings and we didn't need parents in the room to get him back to sleep. And that is a huge win. By the end of the 2 weeks together, Oscar was sleeping through the night, falling asleep on his own within 20 to 30 minutes, and finally getting his sleep back on track. A really good added benefit to this was there was no more complaints of nightmares. So while the nightmares probably were real, if your kids are saying they have nightmares, don't minimize them. It's probably a real thing. But nightmares can be exacerbated when we are not sleeping well, and we can also blame nightmares in order to get attention to our parents. So sometimes we might just wake up if we might not have a nightmare, and we say, I had a nightmare, and they know that means mom and dad will let me sleep in bed with them, or mom and dad will come and sleep with me. I want you to pay attention to your child's expression of their nightmares to really decipher, is it really happening? Is it being reinforced because they're really tired and we need to work on their sleep? Or is this just a behavior that I need to support in another way? When Oscar felt supported, when he felt trust in the relationship with his parents, when his cup was filled at the beginning of the bedtime routine process, and when we were able to really establish that confidence, all of the pieces of the puzzle came together and we achieved their goals. Do you have questions about what it looks like to work with me? Please leave them in the comments below or book a call with me on my website, yourzenbabysleep.com. While you're scrolling down there, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. Let me know that you like this content so I can create more of it. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you're the first to know about my new sleep content postings. As always, from my living room to yours, thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to see you again next time.